Well, hey everybody, John Rickland here, and this is another retro review for WCW WrestleWar 1989. One great match out of this whole card. It's a 9-match card, and this was a slog. Now, it was just about 2.5 hours, so realistically, it did go by pretty fast. But for 9 matches in one great one, and none of the other ones being any good, this is really a real low point for WCW. This was during the very beginnings of the Jim Herd era, and it shows. Like, there was a lot of issues here, and I'm going to get into this stuff, but don't be surprised if I do just a few annoying little mini rants during this, even though I'm going to try not to yell. So, we have cheesy graphics with all the talents, as you would expect in the 1989 pay-per-view. You're going to get that. And it was what it was. In ring, WCW was better than WWE. It was just that, management-wise, WWE blew them out of the water, which is really sad, given the level of talent that WCW had from the time Turner bought the company. Even with some of the changes, they still had a lot of really good talents, but boy, did they have a lot of bad creative. This was, again, Jim Herd. I mean, what do you expect? Jim Herd didn't know what the fuck he was doing. The Oak Ridge Boys sang the national anthem. Jim Ross plugged the fact that they were going to have a little mini concert later. That, I think, got cut from the network edition, which is fine. I got nothing against the Oak Ridge Boys, but I don't really watch wrestling to ever see a concert. I just don't. If I want to watch a concert, I'll watch Access TV or watch some other stuff, and see, concerts on TV. I don't want to watch concerts with my wrestling. Live music with wrestling and live performances are one thing, but like a live entrance is cool, not a concert. Anyway, so crowd rundown with Bob Caudle and Jim Ross, who are a very underappreciated duo as far as commentary. I always forget how good Bob Caudle actually was. But then we get Doug Gilbert versus the Great Muta. It was supposed to be JYD in Doug Gilbert's place, but for whatever reason, JYD couldn't be there. I'm not exactly sure about the reason, whatever. Gilbert got in a few shots, so this is all about a showcase for the Great Muta, and Great Muta ended up beating Doug Gilbert very easily. Very fucking easily. It was like a 3-minute match. I think it was maybe 3.5 minutes. Might not even been that. Great showcase for Muta, as it should have been. Because Great Muta sure as fuck shouldn't have been losing to Doug Gilbert. No offense against Doug Gilbert. He was a fine territory guy. Him beating Great Muta, no, that wasn't going to happen. And Muta beat him easly. And then we get Lance Russell interviewing Ric Flair. Great to see Lance Russell on this, on this card. Really, Lance Russell, one of the best commentators, best interviewers. Guy really spoke volumes for just his passion and everything, and just everything that he said had just a certain, levity to it. The guy really was great. It's a shame he passed away. Got to live a long time, though, and leave one hell of a career. Interviewing Flair, and it's about Ric Flair's last shot at the world title as long as Ricky Steamboat holds it. And that will, of course, be the final of their, epic trilogy. We then get Butch Reed versus Ranger Ross. Ranger Ross, who, he wasn't bad, but he wasn't great. He had some good agility, but no, this wasn't great. Butch Reed wins with a shoulder block. This went about twice the time that it should have. And no offense against Ranger Ross. He was fine for what he was, because he was just pretty much shoved out there after not really being in there for very long. Like, as far as, in the ring. Yeah, just no. Butch Reed winning easily. And this would be one of Butch Reed's last hurrahs before he would get into a team with Ron Simmons, which was actually probably one of the better runs of his career, at least on national TV. And then we get a Luger promo. He said at one point, that his blood was plumping. Don't worry, I'm going to talk about Lex Luger a whole lot more, because this was hyping his match with Michael Hayes a little bit later on for the U.S. title. Luger was the U.S. champion at this point, had been the U.S. champion for quite a bit. We then get Dick Murdoch versus Bob Orton Jr. in a bull rope match in 1989. Not even 1984, not especially 1979 when it would have been better. Nope, 1989. Bob Orton Jr. at this point was pretty much near the end of his career, and Dick Murdoch really, outside of teaming with Dusty Rhodes, I never really cared for Dick Murdoch. I got some reasons. You probably could figure out why. Now, granted, maybe I just didn't, gravitate, his style did not, latch on to me. I did not appreciate his style or something. He didn't draw me in. But it also has to do with how he felt about certain races. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Google it, you'll figure it out. This was pretty bad. It was a pretty bad bull rope match. Gary Hart was there with Bob Orton Jr. Dick Murdoch got the victory, but then Bob Orton Jr. laid him out afterwards and hung him, which, again, given how Dick Murdoch apparently felt about certain races, kind of a bit of karma. yeah, this pay-per-view is not off to a great start. Can you tell? It's not really off to a great start. 3 matches in, and it was like, I think we were at maybe 32 minutes. This is a 2.5-hour pay-per-view. 9 matches. I mean, it would be one thing if, okay, we maybe had a 2-hour pay-per-view and something like that, but nope. 2.5-hour pay-per-view, and we're just over 30 minutes in, and we're done with the 3rd match. We then get the Dynamic Dudes, which were Shane Douglas and John Laurinaitis. Poor Shane Douglas having to carry John Laurinaitis, who just wasn't very good in the ring. And I don't understand why he was popular in Japan, whatever. I'm not going to judge. I just don't get it. But John Laurinaitis, fuck that guy. Terrible, terrible human being. And if you know anything about a lot of the backstage stuff that went on and how he treated a lot of the women, yeah, you'll understand why I feel that way. But they face off against the Samoan SWAT team, Fatu and Samu, and they were managed by Paulie Dangerously. I guess this is where things maybe got better, but not really. This match actually was as long as the 3 previous matches combined, and this match should have been about 3 minutes shorter, because a lot of it was, you know, yeah, the Dynamic Dudes, which it was such a horrible gimmick, and again, poor Shane Douglas, who I've never been the biggest fan of, but this was just something terrible, and he was good in tag teams. He was good as a singles guy in ECW, but this was bad. They had the skateboards with him. John Laurinaitis, and, you know, got in some few shots, so did Shane, but then John Laurinaitis got beat up for a lot. He got beat up, which that was fine, because he should have gotten beat up. He should have got the shit beat out of him for being a piece of shit human being, whether he was back then or he just was once he became a brown noser. Doesn't matter. Anyway, Shane Douglas finally gets a tag. He almost gets pinned at one point, but then I believe it was Fatu picks up Shane Douglas, about to slam him. John Laurinaitis jumps off the top, hits a drop kick. Shane falls on Fatu. 1, 2, 3 Dynamic Dudes get the victory. Dynamic Dudes, whatever. It was one of the only matches I think they won on pay-per-view. Apparently Jim Herd didn't like the Dynamic Dudes or the Midnight Express, which further proves that Jim Herd was a goddamn idiot. And goddamn it, how dare he fucking ruin WCW. Not that George Scott didn't ruin it for a while in the short time that he had it, but fucking hell, Jim Herd, goddamn idiot. Hope that piece of shit's suffering for all he did. Yeah, this just wasn't very good. Then they have an interview with the 3 judges for the Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat match. Lou Thez, war-renowned world champion, Pat O'Connor, and Terry Funk. All 3 renowned champions in their own right. Always great to hear from Lou Thez, since not a ton of audio really existed of the guy. Like, later in his career, obviously, because even though he's popular, you get the point. The whole point is, it was nice to hear from these 3 legends, and Lance Russell right there. Then you get Michael Hayes versus Lex Luger for the U.S. title. Second longest match of the night. And this might actually be the worst match of the night, because this was 16 minutes. When Michael Hayes is your best goddamn worker in the entire, you know, in the match, if it's a singles match, that's not a fucking good thing. If he was the best worker in a tag team match, then you're really fucked. Michael Hayes was okay for what he was. He was a great promo. He just wasn't great in the ring. And I think deep down he knew that, because like Buddy Roberts was, you know, great in the Freebirds. So was Terry Gordy. Terry Gordy, my God, how fucking good was he? He was a fucking spectacular talent. Damn shame he died as young as he did. This was bad though. This was really fucking bad. There's one point, and Hiro Matsuda's out there with Michael Hayes, and Hiro Matsuda, I believe, managed Lex Luger for a bit until Luger switched babyface, which is funny because Hiro Matsuda helped train Lex Luger. Not that you would be able to fucking tell, because Luger never really seemed to know what the fuck he was doing. Unless he was in there with somebody like Flair, or even Pillman, or Steamboat. Sting could sort of get a good match out of Luger. Luger often could not do anything. And Luger was making, apparently, reportedly, $350,000 to $400,000 a year. Seriously. This idiot was getting this kind of a big contract. There was this bad exchange where Luger does a drop down and then gets back up, and it looks like, you know, Hayes is trying for a Russian leg sweep. And just, Hayes really can't do much wrestling anyway, but fucking Luger couldn't even fucking do it. And I'm just like, what was that? What was that? I put these videos on my Twitter. You might have to search through a lot because I do tend to tweet a lot, but if you go to the media, you'll be able to find them. But my exact reaction, I'm just like, $350,000 a year for that. That's what they're paying him. This fucking goddamn rotten, goddamn Lex Luger, that piece of shit. Couldn't fucking wrestle to save his goddamn life or his goddamn legs. And then we get this infamous DDT botch. It was supposed to be, I think it was supposed to be Hayes falling down out of the DDT instead of Luger doing the, like sitting back up. Like, because Luger was like supposed to like say sit, like, you know, try for a DDT, and then it's like you just push the guy off and you just no sell it. Nope, Luger, it's like you got Hayes here, he holds him, and then Luger just falls down. Luger just falls down along with Hayes. Why the fuck was Luger ever pushed if that's the kind of shit he's doing? Look, botches happen. That's fine. The company can do only so much, though, to make somebody look good. Eventually, it is up to you to not look like a goddamn idiot. Now, yes, Luger had only been in the ring for a couple goddamn years. I'm sure he probably had nerves or something like that. But there's no fucking excuse for that. That's on a pay-per-view. If it was on a house show, I would totally understand. But that DDT botch, I'm like, $350,000 a year for that. For that fucking bullshit. Luger, God, you goddamn stupid motherfucker. The fact that he was ever given a world title is ridiculous. Now, he was great as a heel. As a babyface, sorry, just wasn't very likable. I hate having to give credit to the guy for actually having some good matches, but a lot of times it was because somebody carried him, like Flair, the 1988, series of matches they had. Flair carried him and probably beat his body up a whole lot to make Luger look way better than Luger could ever fucking look in the ring. But yeah, that DDT botch, and good fucking Christ, this was bad. A sleeper hold, a really bad, exchange of moves. But it was like the timing was off. It wasn't as bad as Warrior and Hogan 2, Electric Boogaloo at Halloween Havoc 98. No, that was a whole lot fucking worse. But Hayes, then there's this weird fucking, finish where Hayes gets pushed off. He ends up in the ref or something like that. And then Luger falls down because he, gets hit. He gets hit by, Hayes, but then he, flip-flops, a little bit to get in position. And then Hayes, who's on the ropes, gets pushed off by Terry Gordy, even though Hayes said in his earlier interview that he wanted to do things on his own. And gets pushed on Luger 1, 2, 3. Michael Hayes is the U.S. champion. Now, yeah, I may despise Lex Luger a lot, but Michael Hayes is the U.S. champion in 1989. Now, he only held it, I want to say, till Great American Bash 89. And I probably will be reviewing that, so I think that's actually where Luger won the title back. But that's just fucking ridiculous. A 2-month title reign for Michael Hayes, who, quite frankly, was never much of a wrestler and was always made to look better when it came to, in fact, Terry Gordy and Buddy Roberts shoulder to load. Again, Hayes could talk him into the building, he just couldn't fucking work. But yeah, Michael Hayes looked like frickin', he looked like frickin' Superman. He looked like a frickin' ring general next to Lex Luger here. That infamous DDT botch. If you haven't gotten a chance to see it, yeah, WrestleWar 89. You'll have to watch through this match. I don't remember how long it's in. I think it's 5 minutes into the match. Don't quote me on that. But it's really fucking, it has to be seen to be believed, because it's like, Luger, how in the fuck is he so goddamn bad at what he goddamn does? Oh, and now we get to Sting versus the Iron Sheik for the TV title. Sting as a TV champion. The Iron Sheik in a championship match in 1989. Yeah. Sheik attacks Sting before the match with the flag. The bell rings. Sheik beats him up a little bit. But then Sting rips off the headdress thing. Not turban, but the headdress, and chokes him out with it. Sheik finally gets his coat off. Sting chokes him with that. Swings him into the ropes. Into the turnbuckle. Splash. Scorpion. Sheik taps out. It's 2.5 minutes. This is so fucking goddamn pathetic. And then we get Steamboat versus Flair for the WCW title, the NWA title. This was terrific. A great match. I would say this and Spring Stampede 1994, these matches are kind of on par. That's my opinion, even though, maybe you could rank this, given the aftermath, just a little bit above it. But I enjoyed it. And it was the weakest of their feud, of their trilogy. And it was still a 5-star classic. It was great. You had fucking Steamboat got booed incessantly here. You just got booed out of the goddamn building. What didn't help is Flair had all these women with him. You had Steamboat with his family, and it's not like they were booing the kid, but they were booing, his wife and stuff. Well, his wife at the time and everything, Bonnie or whatever the fuck that bitch's name is, dumbass. Yeah, apparently somebody thought she was a really big thing, and she actually wasn't. Nope, Steamboat did all the work. She didn't do shit. Like some people that get in the wrestling, try to get in the wrestling business when they haven't done a goddamn thing. And I just speak as a wrestling fan. She was an embarrassment. And I feel bad for Ricky having to deal with a stupid cunt like that. So, we get back to the match. It was classic as expected. What would you expect? Great chops, wrestling, great wrestling, great chain wrestling. Suplex on the floor, Steamboat taking a big bump. Steamboat took bigger bumps after that. Steamboat hurt his knee at one point, falling off the top rope. Figure 4 spot on Ricky. That was great stuff. In the end, inside cradle because Steamboat's knee buckled. 1, 2, 3. Ricky Steamboat loses the NWA title after holding it for like 2.5 months. And you're thinking, oh, well, Steamboat Steamboat lost it. Like, Steamboat lost it really quickly. It was like a 30-31 minute match. It was actually really good. But he lost it really quickly after winning after that great moment at Chi-Town Rumble, which is another one that I did sometime earlier in the year. I'll put a playlist at the end of the video with the old school wrestling reviews. But then afterwards, you got Flair being interviewed by Jim Ross and this kind of stuff. And then Terry Funk, who's one of the judges. Because again, it was Funk, Thez, and Pat O'Connor. I feel really bad for forgetting that, but it's right on my notes. But Funk's there and wanting to congratulate Ric Flair and saying, I'd like a shot at the title. But Funk had been in Hollywood, hadn't really been wrestling as much. Even though he'd made shots in WWE, he had basically been retired for a bit because he did stunt work for Sylvester Stallone movie. I forget which one. I can't remember. I don't remember which one it was. I'm sorry, I don't. Was it Over the Top? Was that a Stallone movie? I tend to forget some of that. I know that Funk did some stunt work though, and actually did appear in a couple of his movies, and that was pretty cool. I mean, good for Terry. But Terry's like, Rick won't face him. There's a top 10, and Funk isn't in the top 10 because he's been fairly inactive. And Funk takes it as a slight. Oh, you're saying I'm not good enough? Nope, not saying that, but I got to face people in the top 10. And Funk's just like, hey, I was just kidding. I was just kidding about facing you. I didn't mean it. Let me shake your hand. Goes to shake his hand. Boo, pops him. Puts him outside, throws him over the guardrail, beats him up a little bit. Terry starts ripping up the guardrail, can't get it moving. Well, gets it moving, but can't get it apart. Pulls Ric Flair back over, does the pile driver on the table. Flair sells it like crazy. Funk tips the table over, knocks the table on Ric Flair, hits a chair on Ric Flair's head. That was a way to build it to the Great American Bash 89, which, yes, will be another retro review that I'll be doing. That was actually a terrific goddamn match, and one that I really look forward to reviewing. This pay-per-view, however, was not terrific. Now, this match was terrific. The post-match stuff was terrific. Everything else wasn't. Oh, and there were 2 more matches after this. 2 tag title matches. The Road Warriors versus the Varsity Club, which were Rotunda and Dr. Death Steve Williams. Kevin Sullivan was at ringside. Kevin Sullivan and Dan Spivey were going to be in a match right after. Nikita Koloff was a special guest referee. WCW tag titles. Nikita wouldn't be pushed around. And it was mainly power for power, and it was like an abbreviated tag title match, and it wasn't really much of anything. It was pretty... It was fine, but it was almost like a TV match. And then, Nikita gets pulled out by Spivey and Sullivan. They start beating him up, so another referee there at ringside calls for the bell, so that's it. Road Warriors win by DQ, but they do not win the tag titles. But then later in the night, you find out that Rotunda and Williams got stripped of the tag titles for their actions and for the premeditated attack. And then we get Eddie Gilbert versus Rick Steiner, the U.S. Tag Team Champions, versus Sullivan and Spivey, and this wasn't very good. Steiner gets thrown to the ring post a few times to sell his arm. Maybe he had an actual arm injury. I don't quite remember. I was only 8 at the time when this pay-per-view happened. But, there was a brawl from the beginning. Gilbert got beat up for most of it. Steiner got in a little. Steiner didn't really do too much, though at one point he did hit a Steiner line on Dan Spivey. Gilbert fell on him. 1, 2, 3. U.S. Tag Team titles stay with Gilbert and Rick Steiner. And then, there really wasn't much after that. You did have Missy Hyatt getting, targeted by Kevin Sullivan. Well, harassed, I guess, would be the best word. Not that Kevin Sullivan is ever known for being creepy or harassing around women. No, never. Yeah, this pay-per-view is a mess. I mean, I'm not going to grade this one, though I think you probably could guess. It would not get an F, but it would get below C. It would get like a C-. Because really, besides the Ric Flair Steamboat match, that's it. I mean, if I had to really think about a grade, C- would be it. Not good, though. Besides Steamboat and Flair, this pay-per-view was a wash. Now, I get it. I'm all for storytelling, but on pay-per-views, if you're not going to do a good job with a lot of your matches, if half of your matches, If over half of your matches are under 10 minutes and they aren't a good kind of under 10 minutes, that's not good. Anyway, yep, that's all I gotta say. So agree, disagree with what I said. Like, share, subscribe. Twitter handle in the description. I am John Ritlin. I will see you soon.